Probably, black bulls. Like, that's what comes to mind first.
I kind of think of like lower income areas.
Lower income areas?
In general. Like,
And-
yeah, like quality of housing
And who's in those areas? Like what people?
it tends to be predominantly black people, but there's a lot of white people where I'm from.
But when you think of the word poor Americans, it always kind of goes back to black people in a way. And, I get that line of thinking, but when I hear that, I'm like, okay, people low-key kind of act like poor white people don't exist. And I'm not saying these students think poor white people don't exist, but when you hear the term poor American, it's like they're just ignored. Like, it's like the thought of a poor white person just doesn't even cross anyone's mind. Guys, just a disclaimer, please be nice to the students in this video. They're students. We're all students. We're trying to learn. But anyways.
What comes to mind when you think about poor people in the U.S.?
Probably, black bulls. Like, that's what comes to mind first.
What?
I kind of think of like lower income areas.
Lower income areas?
In general. Like,
And-
yeah, like quality of housing
And who's in those areas? Like what people?
it tends to be predominantly black people, but there's a lot of white people where I'm from that are
Uh-huh.
in those areas as well.
Uh-huh. So now the two of you have said what you said, right? You said, yeah, it tends to be just certain areas, right? And it's predominantly black and brown people?
Not in Kansas City.
Not in Kansas City, but yeah. But thinking about the U.S.
Yes, in the U.S. it's
Okay, where'd you come up with that? Where do you come up with that observation?
That there's more like black people that are.
Yeah, that you think black people immediately.
I mean, I don't know if it's something like purposeful, but like just from being around Philly, I just see a lot of them, roaming the streets and stuff. I'm like, over time, there seems to be a little correlation.
Hey, so how is that for you? And you?
So every time I watch these type of videos, and this is no shade at all to the students, because these are my peers too. Like, they're students, they're learning. But when you think of the word poor Americans, it always kind of goes back to black people in a way. And, I get that line of thinking. But when I hear that, I'm like, okay, people low-key kind of act like poor white people don't exist. And I'm not saying these students think poor white people don't exist, but when you hear the term poor American, it's like they're just ignored. Like, it's like the thought of a poor white person just doesn't even cross anyone's mind.
Look in a mirror and you think, okay, poor people in the U.S., the majority of poor people in the U.S. look like me. Like, how is that? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm definitely blessed to be like where I am, attending Penn State. But yeah, it makes me think like I could be out there as well with them if I like go down the wrong path or something happens down the line.
Uh-huh.
And that's what makes America beautiful. Yes, you can be out there with them. Anyone can be in anyone's situation. But the majority of poor people in the United States, at least from my understanding, are not black. But maybe he's going to talk about this later.
Look at these numbers. Numbers of people living in poverty in the U.S., right? So there are more black and brown people than white people, right? But look at the numbers, right? So Isaiah, you said that, yeah, mostly black people, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so take it now. Well, now what do you think?
I mean, like I said, that was just from my observation.
No,
like,
I got you.
Yeah.
No, but it's not just an observation. It's like what you walk around with in your mind, right? When you think, because when you think poverty, think poor people. Like, if in your mind, anytime anyone says something about poor people, you think black people, it's like, okay, hang on, that's big. That's really important.
Yeah.
So.
And yeah, that's a big thing. And of course, I try to be, understanding. I am very understanding. I believe so. But that mindset is kind of dangerous because you're not really looking into it. And I'm not attacking the students, but it is a dangerous mindset because like the numbers say, it's 16 million poor white people in the country, according to wherever the U.S. Census. There's 8.4 million black. But if you just automatically assume that when you hear the word poor, it's synonymous with black, you're completely negating the 1.6 million Asian people, 10.4 million Hispanic people, and the 16 million white people. It's not good. It's not doing us any good, bro. And I don't know how to explain it fully, but I don't think it's doing us any good.
What's this say? Like what yeah.
Yeah, it's enlightening, man. Like, it's cool to see a stat like that.
Because
There's like a lot of white Americans that are also poor as well.
yeah, but so what's cool? Like what makes it cool? Like what's good about seeing that, or what's kind of beneficial about seeing that?
It changed my perspective.
How so?
I didn't know that there were that many like white poor Americans living in the U.S.
Uh-huh. Emily, how about you?
What?
I think that I've like lived in like several different class areas.
Different areas, yeah.
So, like when I was in the lower class area, when I was younger, I was like the only black kid there.
Uh-huh.
So,
In the lower class area, you were the only black kid.
Yeah.
So so for a year, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
this is not.
So yeah, it's kind of not surprising to me, but
Okay.
also like my area is more predominantly white.
More predominantly white, right? We're not talking about East St. Louis, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Isaiah, what would you say to the white people? Like, I mean, because you're not the only one, right? I mean, I know that most people are going to think black people and brown people when they think poverty. So, what would you say to lower class or white people who are in poverty? Like, what would you say to them? Like,
And I'm going to answer this question before he answers it, because I think about this, not a lot, but I think about it enough. And what I would say is that we see you, or I see you. When you have this many, I guess, white people living in poverty, and you have a group of students who are obviously pretty intelligent, in my opinion, because you got into Penn State, that's not an easy school to get into, regardless of race. And even these students are like, well, I didn't even know white people can be poor. He didn't say that directly, but that's kind of what the implication was. If you are a white person and you're living in poverty and you see this, or you grew up in poverty and you see this, or your family's in poverty and you see this, you're like, wow, am I invisible? Like, what is going on? Like, there's all these incentives or groups helping minorities who are growing up in poverty, when the vast majority of people in poverty, although the statistic is not there, but the vast majority of people in poverty are still white. But it's like, when you look at these incentives or these initiatives, or even hear people speak, it's like you're almost invisible. Like, people don't see you, they don't care about your struggle. And what I would say is, I see you, and I'm just bringing, my perspective to the situation. But let's let this play out. Hey y'all, make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe.
the people, they just get disregarded,
Like in what context? Like,
Yeah, well,
What?
I don't know, just whatever. Like, how would it be to be poor and white and
He just said in what context? Okay.
no one thinking that Emily here is saying like, yeah, I've seen, but somebody like you, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people like you who you're poor and white, and you're like, hey, man.
yeah, like I definitely feel a certain way because like none of the focus would be on me. Like, so it'd be bad. Like, I wouldn't feel great about it for sure. Yeah.
Do you know why you might do things like vote for Trump?
Yeah, I mean,
Or
like,
vote for politicians who are saying like, hey, poor white people, you need to, like, you've been shit on for a long time, and like, you need to.
yeah, I could see like, yeah, why a poor white person would do that. Yeah.
you know, most people in, say, like the KKK, that are still in these white supremacist groups and stuff, they're all poor, man. They're not rich. You know what I mean? They're not wealthy. They're not living in state college. So can you imagine? You know what I mean? To say, what do they think about you? It's like, here's another black guy in Penn State, 2 black people at Penn State. Like, yeah, you all are getting all these opportunities, and what about me, man?
Hey, they feel bad. They feel bad, man.
And this is a pretty interesting discussion because he doesn't know what to say. He's literally speechless. He's speechless when it comes to this because at the end of the day, you're told all these struggles. And I'm not trying to negate any struggles. That's not what I'm doing here. And don't try to think that's what I'm doing. But you're told all these struggles on an individualistic level. I'm talking about him specifically, or these students specifically. And I don't know how they grew up, but I'm assuming they grew up pretty fine because, I mean, you're at Penn State, you dress pretty nice, you have a fresh cut. You look like you look well kept, man. Like, I don't know you, but when you're hearing this discussion, you're so bewildered. It's like you can't even fathom poor white people. It's like that. It just doesn't resonate with your belief system. And I'm not saying that's accurate, but that's what I'm getting from you.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I'm just throwing it. I'm just wondering. Like, it's odd to me that does it seem odd to you, like, as someone who grew up around with, you know, who went to school and with a lot of poor white people, does it seem odd to you that we don't talk about, like, so we're talking about racism, right? And so Anya, and so the 3 of you, we're talking about race, all this stuff of racism, and we're having this conversation about, you know, institutional structural racism, but what do you think these white people are thinking about all these conversations about racism that don't involve them? They're actually seen as the problem. Like, y'all white people got so many advantages, and you 15.9 million white people with all your advantages, and yeah, what would you say to them? Tell them about racism now. Tell those white people about all the racism that exists, that the 2 of you experiencing, that you're going to experience in your lives.
Like systematically?
Oh, whatever. I don't know. Any kind of racism. I won't even define it.
I would say that one advantage that they have would be something like perception by the police.
Perception by the police. Okay.
Because that's something that comes up a lot.
Okay. How often?
I can't really say how often, but there's like numerous cases where a black individual is like profiled because
Okay.
they were like walking downtown with their hands in a hoodie, and there was like.
Okay.
You know,
All right. What else?
I'm not sure.
I'm not disregarding that.
This is so interesting because this kind of proves, and this is not a knock of their intelligence. This has nothing to do with somebody's intelligence. This is all about what you hear in the media, you know, stuff like that. This proves that people get brainwashed. When she talks about system, like her first thing when he said, what would you tell those people about racism? She said systemic. The reason that that's important is because she automatically assumed that white people exert systemic racism over minorities within the country. At least that's the context that I'm getting from her. And he said, okay, do you have any examples of this? Her first thought was when it comes to engagements with the police. The reason that I paused it is because what are the chances? I'm not even going to say what are the chances. How many people, do you know that have had really dangerous encounters with the police? And I'm sure you know a lot if you're black. I'm talking about black people. But me personally, I don't know any. And a lot of the people I know who are black don't know any. And the reason I'm bringing this up is not to negate what she's saying or say that you're wrong. I'm bringing this up to say that what she's saying is a very specific situation that does not happen often. What does happen often is situations like money, like what can you afford given your specific race, who gets the most scholarships, I guess, who's getting sent to these schools, who's getting the most grants. Those are more common situations because a lot of young people do go to college. That's a broad issue. That's a broad area. A lot of people aren't getting pulled over by the police. And if they are, it's not a dangerous situation. Let's keep it a buck. It's not happening. On average, police officers are not harming people. They're helping people. So let's talk about an area that's a little more specific. But when you bring up more more mass inducing areas, such as, who's getting into the colleges, who's getting the jobs, who's doing this, who's doing that, you can't really bring up many examples on how these people have a systemic hierarchy. And I'm talking about poor white people specifically. It's not really many you can allude to. And she kind of proved it. It's not many. Let's be honest. You're better off saying, I don't know. It doesn't exist.
People, especially young black men, have lost their lives simply because they're young black men. That's the only thing. Not doing anything. Not even being in any way doing the wrong thing in the wrong place, anything at all, acting a certain way, nothing, have either A, been arrested, beaten up, lost their lives, et cetera, okay?
A white person, if they were convicted for the same crime as a black person, they would have less harsh of charges.
So, not would have.
Or they would be likely to have less.
They would be, to some degree, more likely to have some kind of reduced charges.
Yeah.
But you don't know what degree it is, and you don't know the context. So this is like Gabby's stuff with healthcare, right? Like, we know there's something here, but we don't know what it is, right? So I'm hesitant to throw numbers out. So,
yeah.
But in every situation, in some situations, it would be beneficial to be black. And there are going to be some situations, but on average, if I'm going to have to enter the criminal justice system, looking like me, being as a white man, or being Isaiah as a black man, or brown man, however whatever kind of man we want to be, I'm going to choose me. So, okay. Isaiah, how about you, man? What are you going to tell these people the advantages they have?
I don't really know if one group specifically has an advantage or disadvantage. I feel like it's an equal level playing ground, just because for instance, like you said earlier, white people that are poor, they might be forgotten, and also black people that are poor experience racism. So it's two negatives. So it's kind of equal at that point. So I don't really know if one group is necessarily more advantaged than the other in that case.
And I agree with that. See, I agree. But I would bring it a step further. I think in most people's lives, there's not really much of an advantage. And I'm talking about the majority of people. Think about it. Let's say one fourth of people are living in poverty. That's 25%. It might be higher, it might be lower. I'm just pointing out a random number. 1/4 of people are living in poverty. Do you think your bills care if you're black or white? Do you think your rent cares if you're black or white? Your water bill, your light bill, oh no, I'm gonna stay on just because. No, it doesn't care. And when I say 50%, an extra 50% are living just normal middle class lives. Meaning that you have a very normal life. You wake up, you go to work, you do what you gotta do. You can't go on too many vacations, but you can live a normal life. Do you think your situation cares if you're black or white? No, you just have a middle class life. So my question is, that's already 75 to 80% of people right there, just off of the strength of that. If most are living normal lives and 25% are living below average lives, where is the privilege? Do you have slightly more privilege? Do you get like a discount when you go to Target or something? It's a real genuine question. Hope somebody answer. If majority of people are living normal or below normal lives, how do people even have a high amount of privilege?
Racism that poor black people feel the biggest problem that poor black people have, or is it the poverty?
Probably poverty. Yeah.
Okay, so then is it the poverty that white people have that's the biggest problem for them? So for both groups, and we're not even talking about Asians, Hispanics, American Indians, right? But for both groups, white people and black and brown people, it's the poverty is the biggest problem. That's like gonna probably be like, 95+% of your obstacles here.
Yep.
I'm with you on this one.
Yeah, all right. So this is the thing though, right? This is where we're at. This is like where we're constantly in this battle. We're not talking about, we make the assumptions about racism and white privilege and all this stuff, but it gives rise to a lot of problems because a lot of white people aren't feeling the kind of things that the rest of us are feeling. Even like when the three of you were saying, yeah, but you got to be willing. When you were, I think it might have been you. You were saying like, you got to be willing to do the research and look at the numbers and look at the data and so on, right? But I'm thinking about these people. It's like they don't have time to do research. They don't give a damn about. They're not. You talk about when we start talking about all this white racism, they just like, I gotta imagine they turn off. They're not thinking like, what's about me? Like, what the fuck, a thought on that? Do you see that? You're kind of smiling. Are you with me on it? The people who are they thinking about it? The kids you went to school with?
Yeah, they're kind of like, I guess, like we're on the same level. Sort of.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Hey, can you go? Yeah, exactly. Can you go back to Jonas's question? I'm around two black people who are politically and socially opposed to each other on the black experience. Do you know people who who you just have very different views on the black? Do you know, like, are you?
I mean, yeah, like I know people that like, like what I'm saying, they black and they're like conservative and yeah, it's hard to like.
Dude, most black people are conservative, by the way, but I mean, like, really. Like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, conservative.
Yeah,
Stop, don't complain. If you have a problem, black men in particular, it's like, black people, if you tell me if you go with this, if you have a problem, it's your fault, man. If you get in trouble, it's your fault. Like, stop doing stupid shit. Like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Get moving forward. Is that something?
He might be right. I don't know the details, though. But that's because we're all different people. People look at black people as if we're like one big collective of black. But yeah, I'm black, but I'm still human. I have different thoughts.
Familiar?
Yeah, but like it's familiar, but like most of the people in Philly, like if they do something or get caught, it's never their fault somehow. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
I see what you're saying.
But once you get caught, it's never your fault.
Yeah.
But if you ask their grandmothers or their mothers or their fathers or their pastors, what are they saying? It's like, it's your fault.
Yeah.
You're being an idiot. This is where we lose track of the. Can you feel this? This is where we lose track. People have this idea that black people just make excuses for bad black behavior, and I'm like, nah, man, you don't understand black people.
Yeah, my dad's kind of that way, where he's like, well, I made it out, so like, you can.
Get it out. So
Yeah.
I made it out, so you make it out.
Yeah.
I'm responsible, you be responsible.
Some people's situations are so dire to where it would be extremely impossible to make it out. What I think people are saying, or at least what I say, is that it's not race specific. Like, just because you're black and from the hood does not mean you can't make it out. It's just not true. I would say this: some people's situations are so bad to where it would be almost impossible for them to make it out, because poverty is not something to joke about. It's real. Like, it's a real situation. It's not just something that you can wake up one day and be like, you know what? I was broke yesterday, but tomorrow I'm going to have a 401k and a nice job and a good family with a white picket fence. It's not that simple. What people are trying to say, at least if they have good intentions, is that if you work hard enough, the chances of you making it out increase. It's not race specific.
Yeah, like I agree. Like when we had I think it might have been like 2 or 3 classes ago, like with the people, I think they robbed somebody or whatever. Like nah, most black people probably be like, just throw them under the jail and like just, yeah.
So where do you think we get this idea from that black people are not like that? Like the black people all just want, like, they want to make excuses for all the dumb things that black people do. Like, where does that come from?
Probably like social media and like the movements and stuff. Like, I'm not saying like the movements, like the Black Lives Matter movements are wrong, but like, I think the majority of people will kind of just assume that like all black people are covering up for like other black people's behavior when that just isn't the case. Like,
Yeah.
if I see on TV that like 2 black men robbed this and that, like, I'm not gonna be like, oh man, throw money to these guys, like get them some help. Like, nah, like.
It's because we're individuals. We all have different thought patterns. Just because you're black doesn't mean you automatically think a certain way. But yeah, I'm running out of time on my camera, so I'm gonna end this here. If you have any suggestions, comment down below, and I'll see you on the next one.